Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Naomi Sleep, the Executive Director of the Florida Student Success Center, and I'm joined here by Dr. Carrie Henderson, Executive Vice Chancellor of the Florida College System. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar regarding the Florida Student Success Center and our mathematics pathways and work groups. Before we get started today, just to go over some webinar logistics, all participants are on mute for the duration of the webinar. The orange arrow button on your control panel will help expand or minimize your panel so that you can be able to see. In your panel, you should also see a handouts area where you'll find a copy of today's presentation slides. And then if at any point you have questions during the webinar, you can submit them in the questions box, and we will address those during the Q&A portion of the webinar. Early this year, the Florida College System launched the Florida Student Success Center in partnership with Jobs for the Future, Helios Education Foundation, and the Florida College System Foundation. Our role is to support the institutional initiatives that improve college completion and promote student success in Florida. The vision for the Florida Student Success Center is to serve as a resource of evidence-based, innovative practices and timely information for our colleges to support the work that our colleges are doing to advance best practices. So what are Student Success Centers? Student Success Centers are established to serve as a statewide organization that supports colleges' efforts to develop student-centered pathways and to increase student completion rates. Centers help colleges align priorities and maximize their resources to help initiatives move beyond the pilot to the scale, and then to also represent a voice of practitioners regarding policy discussions. Florida Student Success Center is part of a national network, joining 14 other states as a learning community to promote best practices and collaboration. Florida Student Success Center supports our colleges through 5 key functions that you'll see represented in the image on your screen: providing coherence, connecting policy and practice, efforts to convene, improving data capacity, and promoting research and knowledge development, or what we refer to as the 5 pillars. Under the pillar of convene is where the Success Center is preparing to formally launch mathematics pathways work groups, creating these purpose-driven work groups, bringing together practitioners from the K-12 system, our colleges, and the university system to discuss policies and practices that support student success around mathematics. Our mathematics pathways redesign and content alignment is a primary initiative of the Florida Student Success Center and is under the leadership of Executive Vice Chancellor Dr. Carrie Henderson. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to her to talk a little bit more about the mathematics work group.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today, and we are really excited to have some of our partners from across the state represented. The purpose of today's webinar is to familiarize everybody with the Florida Student Success Center and then lay the framework for the work of the Mathematics Redesign Work Group. As part of this Helios Education Foundation grant, we have established Mathematics Pathways Redesign as a primary initiative for this first year. And we know that when thinking about mathematics pathways in the Florida college system, that's only capturing one piece of the puzzle. We know that when it comes to mathematics pathways, we have to also look at the alignment with secondary education as well as with university alignment. And so with that in mind, the charge of the mathematics work group is to explore complex issues around mathematics pathways, looking to prepare high school students for entry into college, Florida college system students for success along their pathways. And so that may include looking at alternatives to college algebra for students on non-STEM tracks. And lastly, looking at Florida college system students as they transfer into the state universities. We know that half of the juniors and seniors in state universities come from the Florida college system. And so thinking about mathematics pathways as it relates to those students is particularly important. As we engage on this work, we do have guiding values to guide our work, guiding values of transparency, collaboration, respect, diversity, and evidence-based inquiry. These are all going to be important as we look to bring together representatives from all 28 Florida college system institutions, as well as our partners with K-12 and the state university system. in terms of deliverables, what we hope to have as a final outcome are really two things. The first is a catalog of evidence-based best practices that are really designed for scale. And so we know there's a lot of local innovations happening between and within colleges looking to redesign mathematics pathways. And what our intention is to catalog what's working and catalog what could be working, so new and emerging initiatives, and design them for scale. So if something's working well in one district at one institution, is that something that another institution can replicate? And so we'll be looking to develop a catalog of that. Secondarily, we're looking to develop recommendations for state and institutional policy and practice around mathematics pathways redesign. We know that in order for broad-scale change to happen, state policy can be an important lever. And so thinking about if we were to make a proposal for consideration for the Commissioner of Education, the Florida Legislature, what would we recommend in terms of breaking down barriers in math pathways development? And so that's a key component, but we don't want to lose that there's an institutional component as well. As I said before, our institutions are really progressing in their redesign of mathematics pathways. And so for institutions looking to start the work, how can they reform and innovate at the local level? And so as we think about the mathematics work group, we have identified 3 work groups. Each of those work groups has about 25 representatives. The Florida college system is represented, as well as the state university system, as well as school districts across the state. And so the first work group is focused on high school to post-secondary alignment. And that work group will be centered around how high school curriculum can align with post-secondary expectations and what happens to students once they graduate high school and either go into the Florida college system or the state university system. And so on your screen, you'll see some examples of what those work groups might take on. We are not necessarily prescribing that these are things that have to happen, but these are rather suggestions and perhaps guiding questions for the work groups to consider. So things like clarifying what college entrance requirements are and working with high school counselors to ensure that those are clear and well understood. Examining data, looking at mathematics sequencing and progressions at the high school level and how that translates to student success at the college level. Engaging at the district level and the college level, high school and college faculty in dialogue about post-secondary expectations, and then identifying strategies that promote greater alignment. As it relates to mathematics sequences within the Florida college system, we anticipate that this group will look at multiple pathways for students to enter their programs of study, as well as redesign of course structures to maximize support for students. And so in addition to looking at data on student success, particularly around algebra and non-algebra pathways, some of our institutions are moving to a statistics pathway for liberal arts majors. We're also going to ask that this work group consider what course and what institutional structures are in place that promote and deter student success, encouraging the modernization of mathematics content, and then thinking about course sequencing, particularly as it relates to students' intended transfer major, as well as their meta major. The last work group, which will have representation from the state university system, is the Florida college system to university alignment. And so a major component of the Florida college system's mission is to offer associate and arts transfer programs for students intending to enter into the state university system. And we have longstanding articulation agreements statewide and also at the local level that support student progression. And so with this work group, we'll really be focused in on the curriculum as it relates to mathematics for university programs. And so as students are in the Florida college system and they're thinking about transferring, how can we ensure that they get the mathematics education that they need to be successful at the university? What do the data show as it relates to student transfer and student ultimate success at the university? And how can we, like we are doing with our high school partners, engage Florida college system and state university system faculty around post-secondary expectations? And then lastly, identifying strategies that promote alignment in these areas. So in terms of the activities and timeline, we are looking to really begin our work in earnest next month in September. And we are hosting a one-day kickoff meeting at St. Petersburg College's Seminole campus, where we're inviting the 75 representatives from the colleges, universities, and high school districts to participate. We're also going to have representation from the Florida Department of Education, Office of Public Schools, the Florida College System Office, as well as the Office of the Board of Governors for the state university system. So that one-day kickoff meeting is really designed to light a fire and get these work groups started and focused on that ultimate goal of cataloging evidence-based practices as well as developing institutional and state policy recommendations. Within phase one of the work, we're looking at the work groups to review research and develop research questions. Really what we're trying to get at with this phase is to allow that process of inquiry and exploration to occur at the mathematics work group level. And so what data do these work groups need? What information, what resources would help inform their work to better understand challenges that are existing as it relates to these three areas? And then what additional data or resources do those work groups need to think about potential solutions to the challenges that our students may face? The next phase of the work we anticipate is going to include a scan of the policy environment. At the Department of Education, we've begun a little bit of this work. So looking at not only the high school level, but the college level as well. What exists at a state level that supports student success as it relates to Math Pathways redesign, and also what's happening at the local level to implement Math Pathways redesign. The last phase of the work, before it sort of culminates in a one-day institute, and this is really where the rubber meets the road, is phase three, which is focused on generating best practices and developing those policy recommendations. And so this is the ultimate deliverable of the work groups and something that we hope will result in state-level change as well as institutional level change to inform policy as we move forward. And then the last phase is to share the results broadly, state and system-wide through a one-day institute. We anticipate this will happen in June of 2019. And we would also hope that the work group members would not stop with this one-day institute, but that this would be a continual conversation that we're having in the state about Math Pathways redesign and ensuring that the proposed solutions that are recommended are being sought after, and that as a state we continue to look at how we can innovate and improve success in this area. At the bottom, you'll see an example of what our estimated timeline is. And so we announced that September was the date of the kickoff meeting. We anticipate that will happen September 17th and 18th. And then the work will culminate in June or July of 2019. Between those two times, though, we do want to allow flexibility and adaptability for the work groups to conduct their work. And so we'll have milestones in place to help guide the work of the work groups, but we really want it to be an organic process where all members of the work groups are able to contribute in a way that doesn't feel so forced by having strict deadlines. In terms of workgroup participants, we're looking for individuals who can share their expertise, skills, and insight with a statewide network in mathematics. And as part of being in the work group, we're going to provide ongoing opportunities for professional development and networking across the state. This will not only hopefully help that individual in their role at their institution or at their school, but will also increase Florida's understanding as a state of mathematics alignment, and ultimately seeking to inform best practices as well as policy recommendations. In terms of the role and resources of the work groups, each of the work groups will be assigned a staff liaison who will serve as a resource for the work group members and be able to connect them with resources technical assistance, research. We anticipate that we'll have folks from the K-12 public schools as well as the university system on board to assist as well, so that the work groups are able to tap into the resources that exist at a state level. In terms of the chairs of the work groups, we've identified college faculty members and administrators to lead the work groups. So we have one chair for each of the work groups, and about 24 to 35 members for each of the work groups exist who will conduct the work. What we anticipate is that while these work groups are rather large, about 25 apiece, we anticipate the work will be broken down into smaller units based on particular challenges, barriers, or solutions that emerge. And so that's how we'll organize the work. We also have about 35 members at large who are serving in a capacity where they will be used to provide feedback and input along the way, as well as receive information through webinars and other types of communication, newsletters, so that they feel informed about the process, but also have an opportunity to contribute. We know this work is incredibly important and want to have as much representation as we can. And so by having this member at large work group, our intention is to provide as many people who are engaged and interested in this work access to the information and opportunity for input as we can. And then throughout the process, we'll bring in subject matter experts in the different areas to provide resources and research and backgrounds on some of the information that we'll be working on. So we've already kind of gone through the timeline. We're kicking off next month. The work groups will really engage in their work from September to May of 2019. We anticipate the work will happen in virtual meetings, probably webinars. We're also establishing a learning management system through Canvas. We'll be offering a lot of the materials. And then we're anticipating that this work will culminate in a one-day institute in June of 2019. Where we'll present the findings and the recommendations. We anticipate that on a monthly level, work group members can expect to spend about 6 to 8 hours on this work. This may include engaging in readings, research, and other related activities related to the work group roles. And so really looking forward to this work. As I said, we have gone ahead and received a fantastic response to the work group interest participation. And so looking forward to really getting started next month. And as we think about launching this work and talking about it, we wanted to engage with some partners who we know is also engaged in this work to make you aware of it and give you the opportunity to participate. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Naomi Sleep, who's going to walk through mathematics resources that we have available.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Henderson. As Carrie said, we do invite you all to be engaged with the work that's happening around mathematics pathways in Florida this upcoming year with the Student Success Center. And we do have some information posted on our website that we invite you to take a look at and be a part of. And then I'll also talk about how you can engage in that work with us as well. So on the Florida College System website, we do have a Student Success Center area where you can see information about guided pathways, where we do offer some resources specific to mathematics pathways. So we have some resources from some national providers, such as the Dana Center, as well as some information from specific institutions that have gone through mathematics pathways work and get some insight on how that process went and some lessons learned from that as well. We also do have a Mathematics Pathways website unique and dedicated for you all to be engaged and follow the work that's happening with our institutions and the work groups that Carrie talked about. So that area is also on the Student Success Center under Guided Pathways and then Mathematics Work Groups, where we kind of talk about the role of those work groups, review the charge and the values and the deliverables that they'll be engaged with. And we also list some information that is important and unique to the work that we're doing, such as the work definition, again, of what the work groups are, newsletters that we'll be distributing, as well as webinars that we have conducted and will conduct in the future, and inviting you all to participate in that information and use that as a place to kind of follow along a little bit. You'll see that we do have the resources provided. We will have some newsletters that we invite you to be engaged with us on, as well as the webinars that are posted as well there. So as Dr. Henderson said, we do invite you to participate in the process and hope that you'll be engaged with us through things like our newsletter and our webinars, and follow along in the process as we keep you informed of the work of the working group through those phases that Dr. Henderson mentioned, and wanted to make sure that we invite you all to be a part of that important process with us. I think at this time, we will open up the floor for some Q&A. As we mentioned earlier, if you could use your chat box to submit a question, we would be happy to answer those at this time. Okay, thank you all so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time and your flexibility. We will follow up with the material again from today's webinar and a recording, and again invite you to participate in our process. Thank you so much.